Well, hi everybody, and welcome once again to IAG Trade Talk. I'm your host, Andrew Scott, and I'm absolutely delighted today to have two very esteemed guests, and we're going to be talking about everything that's been going on in Macau. A lot of news in the last week or so with the junket industry and also with the relicensing. It's never a dull moment in Macau. So we've got David Green, Chairman of New Page Consulting, well known to IAG readers and viewers. David, welcome to Trade Talk.
Thanks, Andrew. Good to be here.
And we've also got Carlos Lobo, a Macau-based gaming consultant who has been involved in the Macau gaming industry for decades. In 2001 and 2002, he was a former regulator with the Macau Gaming Commission, involved in the original negotiations around the licensing, and then was also a former associate General Counsel for Venetian Macau Limited, the license holder here in Macau. Welcome, Carlos.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So, gentlemen, there have been a lot happening in the last week or so. Let's start with the big news about Suncity. Suncity has closed all of its rooms in Macau. And our understanding at IAG is they've actually closed all their rooms all across Asia, Philippines as well, and other places. This follows on Friday of last week, the issuing of an arrest warrant for the CEO, chairman and controlling shareholder, Alvin Chau, on the Friday evening. But then on the Saturday morning, Macau decided that no thanks, we'll arrest Mr. Chau ourselves. And he is now, along with four other of his compatriots in Koloan prison, awaiting trial on charges of money laundering, illegal gambling, and also running a criminal association. So that's obviously massive news, given that Suncity is the largest VIP gaming promoter, the largest junket in Macau, in Asia, and in the world. What a simple question for both of you first, either to go first. What's the future for Suncity? Carlos, you're shaking your head there.
I think this is the end for Suncity as a junket entity. There has been a clear message that the government has found things that were disturbing, and essentially a judge has agreed with the public prosecutor and remanded Mr. Alvin Chau into custody, which puts an end to his operation. If you recall, the junket licensee is Mr. Alvin Chau, or his company. It's a single shareholder company. He's the single shareholder. He's the single director of the company. Nobody else. It wouldn't be possible to run up the operation, obviously, from prison. And to be honest, I think no gaming operator would be willing to be in a relationship with an entity whose shareholder and director has been put in jail, specifically in regards money laundering accusations. So I think this is the end for Suncity as a junket. For the group, that's something that may be different for other parts of Suncity Empire, but for the junkets, that's the end.
David, anything you'd like to add to that?
Not a great deal, Andrew, other than to say I generally agree with what Carlos said. I think that what's interesting about this is that the intentions of the authorities were effectively telegraphed, or at least their concerns, if not their intentions, as long ago as 2019, when it emerged in the press that there were concerns held about the proxy gaming operations being conducted by Suncity out of the Philippines. And we've since that time had the revelations that came out in the Bergen inquiry in New South Wales, which was highly critical of the association between the Crown Group and Suncity, among other junket operators. So this has been brewing for some time, and I guess the only issue really is why now? And I think that question almost answers itself, because we had the Guangzhou prosecutor's office decide to proceed against Mr. Chau, and Macau followed suit very quickly thereafter. It can't be a coincidence. I don't generally believe in coincidences, and that one, the proximity is such that it really couldn't be a coincidence.
Well, it was a matter of hours, wasn't it? It wasn't even a full 24 hours. I think it was Friday night and Saturday morning. But Macau insists that this is just the time was right in their investigation, but it seems incredibly coincidental to me anyway. But let's move on a little bit. Let me just play devil's advocate as much as I can. I'm not saying that I necessarily subscribe to what I'm about to say, but if I was forced to advocate on behalf of Suncity, I might say a few things. For example, I might say, well, hang on a minute, you've been giving me a junket license every January 1 for all these years. I'm not really doing anything different today to what I was doing a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, or even back in 2007 when Suncity began. Some people around Macau have been saying, well, if they're unhappy with them now, why weren't they unhappy with them 10 years ago? I mean, little things as well, like the Macau government was very happy for Suncity to sponsor the Grand Prix year after year, to put money up for the film festival. I mean, Suncity really was a part of Macau. I think 2,000 or 3,000 employees at one stage. There's a part of me that says, well, hang on, this has been going on for years, and now you're suddenly saying that they're breaking the law. I mean, am I just barking up the wrong tree there, Carlos? What would you say to somebody who says that?
I would start by saying that the government did refer that they started investigating Suncity for a year and a half, I believe, around that time. They did start auditing junket operations quite recently. So they may have found evidence of wrongdoing during those audits. We still don't know. I have no information on the particulars of the case, obviously. But the fact that they started an audit quite recently, and all of a sudden this comes after mainland China authorities refer to this accusation. I think the timing, I think it's a little bit too much coincidence, to be honest. I would agree with you both. But the fact is, the government did not start really going after the details of junket operations until recently. In 2016, they started looking better. They started demanding more to implement more requirements on junkets, to have a local-based operation where they could find the specific details about their own operation, about their clients, their accounting. And then when they started this process of auditing, I have to say that I would be very surprised if they didn't find anything, to be honest. Well, I guess they did. We can discuss why they didn't do this earlier, why they didn't start auditing junkets earlier. But the fact is, around 2019, they did do that. And what I would do this at this time is credit the current chief executive, Hayat Singh, for doing that. He was the one that started pushing for that. He realized the the significance of the junket operation, the significance of the junket operation for mainland authorities, because you have to remember that in, I believe it was July of last year, that the central government said that this was these funds that were going to other jurisdictions for gaming purposes, they were considered as a national economic security risk. Once you have that kind of description of that classification, you cannot run away from the fact that something has to be done. And guess what? They did. So to a point, this was no surprise, especially from that time of that conference. There was no doubt in my mind that something would have to happen.
Can I just offer a slightly different perspective? And I don't disagree with Carlos at all in terms of his analysis. But what I'd say is this, that the bar for the suitability of junket operators to be licensed was always low. And it was low for two reasons. Firstly, at the time the licensing regime was introduced, VIP represented around 70% of gross gaming revenue in Macau. It was the big kahuna. It wasn't something that you could simply dismiss as incidental or irrelevant. And over time, of course, the VIP market share has atrophied. But when the regulation 62002 was introduced, the premise behind it was government will give cursory clearance for suitability and licensure, but it will require a written contract with each concessionaire in order to engage all of the licensed operators in a regulated activity, which of course is the VIP gaming itself. And the onus then went on to the operators. Now, the operators were only too keen, given the gold rush that was going on, to embrace anyone who had a license from DICJ in Macau. Now, as time has worn on and we've seen this market share decline, we've also seen more light shone on the operations, not only through the process of the mutual evaluations undertaken for money laundering purposes, of which Macau's had 2 since 2002, and it has done comparatively very well in the most recent one. So there's a desire to maintain that credibility. And given some of the revelations which have come out going back to 2019, as I said, more recently with Bergen, there's where you shine light, you've got to find something. And I think that partly explains, if not maybe fully explains, why we're seeing this happen now.
So I think what both of you gentlemen are saying is that the devil's advocate position I put forward, that nothing has changed, is really wrong. In fact, we have, what's changed is maybe not so much the junkets operations, but the attitude of regulators, of governments towards what they're doing. More information's come to light. So that's an interesting perspective from both of you. So let me expand that a little bit more now into all junkets in Macau, all VIP play in Macau, and even across Asia. I mean, how does this contagion now spread to the other junkets in Macau? I mean, are they doing anything different to what Suncity did? What's your view on that? And even in context of the recent Dore case that we had, where the concessionaire was liable for an amount on deposit with the junket, does this mean the end for junkets because concessionaires are just going to go, this is all too much risk for us now?
Well, could I perhaps start by saying that, as we know, 3 of the 6 concessionaires are linked to entities that are licensed in Nevada. Nevada has foreign gaming operations provisions in its law, which really restrict the ability of licensees conducting foreign gaming operations to associate with people who might be considered unsuitable. And the junket model in Macau has always pushed the boundary somewhat because it's a totally different relationship to independent agents, as junkets are known in Nevada. In particular, the advancing of credit is done by the VIP operators themselves, not on behalf of the casinos, but on their own behalf. So there's a situation has now arisen where I think it becomes very difficult for the Nevada Gaming Control Board to simply take a benign view of what's happening in Macau. And it has the right to require any association to be submitted for suitability testing in Nevada. And my suspicion is that if that were to occur now, we would get a very different result and a very different degree of tolerance for VIP operations to what we've historically seen.
Well, that all spells pretty bad news for the VIP and junket industry across Asia by the sounds of things, and Suncity itself. So is this model done, completely done? Is this model, are we going to have anything like this model again, or is this model completely done for all operators, for all junket promoter or VIP gaming promoters across all of Asia? Is there any way some of this model can survive, or have we now gone from a three-tier mass, premium mass, VIP way of thinking of the industry to just two-tier mass and premium mass? Is VIP just completely dead? That's my question.
I'm not sure it's completely dead. I think we're really talking about a single geography here, which is China. There are other countries which are potential sources of players. Thailand, for example, Malaysia, Indonesia, even Singapore. And I think there may still be players who are willing to be involved in junket organised gaming excursions into Macau. But there are a couple of downsides to that. One is that they will feel that they could well be under scrutiny as players, not just as people participating in a junket, but in their own right, sources of funds, exposure to much more stringent and consistent application of AML. So that won't be an easy sell. The other possibility, I suppose, is that the junket operators could reinvent themselves somewhat, as in fact there's evidence that they've tried to do, which is forward integrate into operations and treat players as premium direct, in effect. So they could operate the casinos, advance credit directly to players, have their own arrangements for loss rebates or own play commissions or whatever it may be, and conduct business that way. But again, I do have some concern now that any operator who has been associated with a junket and has tried to reinvent themselves in that way is going to be subject to real scrutiny publicly. And in a reputational sense, there won't be a lot of people that will be stumping up to associate with them at that end of the market.
So does that means then if China does not become a VIP feeder market, there are still players in China who want to play baccarat, who want to come to Macau and play baccarat. Those players still exist. So am I right in assuming that the plan, if there is one, is for them to rediscover Macau on their own as premium direct and have to find ways of getting money to Macau themselves and organising directly with the operators? I mean, does this even put pressure on the operators themselves in terms of their premium direct marketing to mainland China? They need to be pretty careful too, don't they?
If I may, I just like to refer a couple of things. The first one is I do believe that junkets will survive. Junkets will have to reinvent part of their operations. Mainland China is, at least at this moment and for the foreseeable future, it's hands off. You cannot touch it from a pure gaming perspective. I believe, and to be honest, I've been defending this position for a couple of years now, at least. The focus has to move from pure VIP gaming to a more mass market, premium entertainment industry. Travel agency services. Independent agents, they are a quasi-travel agency that provides for all needs of specific guests. What junkets, I believe, need to start preparing is for exactly that. They cannot say, come to Macau and I'm going to give you 1-to-1 on credit or 2-to-1 on credit or whatever deal there is, but they can offer other services. Come to this show. It's going to be amazing. Come to this conference. This is going to be amazing. Is it a pitch that VIP patrons love? No, of course not. They want specifics. They want details. How much credit they're going to make, how long they need to do, how long they have to make repayments. But that at this moment and for the foreseeable future, it's not going to happen. So if junkets want to continue to be a part of this industry, they have to adapt. They have to look at a model where they are going to advertise Macau not as a gaming destination, but as an entertainment city, a center for tourism and leisure. This is what they need to do, and together with all gaming operators, if they are able to continue with those relationships with the gaming operators, as David also referred. This is the way for them that I see today for them to reinvent themselves in regards to China. Of course, you still can go to other jurisdictions nearby and pitch them to come to Macau. There are lots of VIP patrons coming from other jurisdictions. But I would also like to refer one thing. Gaming operators are going to be extremely careful from now on because of their own Nevada licenses. So they are going to scrutinize junket operations. And also referring to the Dore case, now casinos understand their liability in regards their junket operations. They are liable for what happens in their casinos. And this has a reflection also on the ability of them collecting gaming debts, because if you extend credit to someone in Thailand, are you able to collect legally, lawfully in Thailand? I'm not sure. Are other jurisdictions where you can collect? Yes, there is. But yes, there are. But it's going to, you will need due diligence, you will need compliance mechanisms, and you have to expect casino operators to be extremely careful and risk averse, specifically because there's a tender process coming in, and you want to be, you don't want only to be clean, you also want to be seen as clean. So I see a lot of headwinds for junkets, but I also see ways out.
Well, let's move on. So basically, I think the conclusion there is junkets are pretty much dead unless they reinvent themselves in the way that Carlos suggests, in which case they're probably not what we currently think of as junkets. There's something else more akin to travel agents. But look, you bring up the new gaming law and the retendering process, Carlos. I'd like to move on to that because that's the other big hot topic at the moment. We've finished the consultation period. We're waiting for the report to come out. This law 16 of 2001 is going to be updated. There are a number of issues in that. Does what's happened in the last week, how do you see that affecting affecting the changes in the laws, if at all? Carlos?
I don't see what happened in the past week will not affect dramatically the gaming law. I do think it does give support to what the government proposed in regards scrutiny over junkets. Any criticism towards it, if there was any, it won't show up anymore. So we now know that proposal to criminalize receiving deposits from people, from not only customers but from other people, that's gonna happen, and we know that junkets are going to be subject to even more scrutiny from now on, if there is anyone still interested in continue operations after all that happened. In regards the law itself, I don't think there's many changes in regards the consequences of this week. What I do think is that gaming operators and investors alike are going to start looking at this, and now that they understand there won't be any growth in VIP. We're not going to see the numbers that we have seen before. This is going to have an impact on proposals that they are going to put forward on the retendering process. I expect to be less for investors to be less interested in Macau. I think it's going to be, and that may raise risks on, and that has a consequence on the ability to raise funds for new projects. That is the biggest impact of what just happened. It's on the ability of gaming operators to put forward new proposals, and knowing that they have the financial capacity to support those projects. And that leads me to think that maybe we will see some consolidation in the future, even within gaming operators. I would not be surprised if we see consolidation there.
David, you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I guess the issue is going to be in terms of the revision of the law, whether the term of the concessions should be extended rather than reduced, because this will require a re-engineering of business models, and that can't happen overnight. And what the government was envisaging, I think, was a move into some alternative non-gaming activities, which themselves are fairly high risk because they're not close to the core business of the concessionaires, which is gaming. So if you take those factors together, I think what it militates against is short-termism about the term of a concession for gaming. Because if they were to offer a 10-year concession now, my opinion is that almost no one would be prepared to pay a premium for it, because there is no guarantee that they will have the opportunity to align their business models in a way that ensures that they get payback. So I think inadvertently, perhaps, the government may have put itself in a position now where it needs to look at an extension of the term rather than a reduction of the term.
This all leads into my next thought I want to put to both of you gentlemen, is that how can the Macau government maintain foreign investor confidence, if indeed it wants foreign investor confidence, when you've got this happening? You've also got mainland China seemingly having a little bit more of an outsized influence on Macau, and a variety of things that are happening at the moment. Mainland China have shown recently that they're not unafraid to do things that will hurt particular sectors of the economy or individual companies even. There's no reluctance to do that in mainland China. And let's be honest, Macau has been hurting the last few years. If you're a foreign company wanting to invest, tens of billions of dollars or multiple billions of dollars, how can the Macau government frame that law, or indeed how else, in what other mechanism can they do to engender that investor confidence for a foreign company to come along and say, yes, we are going to invest another X billion dollars in Macau?
Well, my view is that it's almost impossible for them to do that. One of the things the industry relies on for confidence is certainty. And right now, the only thing that's certain is that there is a much tougher line being taken, both at the national level and also at the SAR level, when it comes to characterisation of gaming and the visitation of people to Macau specifically for that purpose. And this is interesting in the context of the one country, two systems philosophy, because what it's effectively done is create the view now that Macau is almost a foreign country, notwithstanding that it's part of China politically and geopolitically. From this perspective, it seems to be now considered in the same boat as any external territory. And to my mind, that undermines confidence in a way that I don't think anyone has seen previously. I mean, there was always a reliance upon the tenets of the basic law to protect investors, to ensure the sovereignty of the SAR government, and to also ensure that it could continue to operate, given that it's so reliant in a fiscal sense on the proceeds of gaming taxes. So how you operate in that context, and even looking at things like what's the likely GGR over the next couple of years, well, who knows? It depends entirely on how long COVID threatens gross gaming revenue, and whether in fact we see zero COVID continuing to be.
Looks like we've lost David there for a second. He may come back, but I'll just give it a second. No, it seems to be frozen up for the moment. We may get him back. Hang on, there we go. We've got him back.
Sorry, was I fell out, did I?
You fell out for about 15 seconds there, David. You
were
were postulating as to the GGR.
Sorry?
You were postulating as to the GGR given COVID and this current situation in Macau.
Look, my point is that, we've got to be concerned about the fiscal reserves and stability of Macau now, because it's still highly reliant on gaming revenue taxes.
Well, let me broaden that to a more esoteric question. Carlos, I'd like specifically like you to answer this one. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I would like to refer. I don't agree exactly with David on this one. The first thing is the government did refer in the public consultation document that they were looking for an international tendering process. They are waiting, or they are expecting entities from other jurisdictions to come in. And to be very blunt, when I say other jurisdictions, I don't mean mainland China. I don't believe any entity from mainland China would be in a position to invest in Macau gaming industry. I don't think that's going to happen. I believe there were specific references by President Xi Jinping saying that for mainland China entities are to invest in areas that are consistent with national policies. And in this sense, I also refer that what gaming operators need to understand, in my view, my personal view, is that what we have been seeing both in the public consultation document and in these enforcement actions, is a real enforcement of the law. What the mainland China government was adamant in saying, we don't want these huge funds going to other jurisdictions for the purposes of gaming, because this is undermining our social stability and our economic security. As long as companies understand what are mainland China policies for both at the national level, the One Belt One Road project, or nationally the tackling poverty, or even locally in Macau, Macau as a center for tourism and leisure, and the relationship with Hengqian, the Greater Bay Area. As long as entities understand that their actions are to be, if not in support, at least they shouldn't be against those policies, against those objectives. Once a company starts acting in a way that is not consistent with that, they will face problems. So foreign entities from other jurisdictions, foreign jurisdictions, be it Singapore, US, Australia, or anywhere else in the world, any foreign entity that comes to Macau can expect stability in the sense that they are enforcing the law. This is a point that I don't see stressed enough. People are saying there's a lot of instability. There is instability because people were not acting in accordance with the law. As long as you follow the law, as long as you understand that your actions have consequences, then you will find stability. Of course, COVID-19 apart, yes, we have an issue with COVID-19 because of all these restrictions. But in fact, these restrictions that we have here in Macau and in mainland China have shown us, especially with this Omicron variant, that it works. This situation where you essentially close down certain areas for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, avoids shutting down even larger areas, even bigger parts of the economy. And long-term is more stable than having to face lockdowns just like the rest of the world is facing now, with Japan closing down, Israel closing down, other jurisdictions saying we don't want flights from anywhere from Southern Africa. We have stability in Macau, and it is attractive, and people continue to be interested. And once mainland China is able to maintain stability, to obtain stability in COVID-19, we are able to see a huge number of people coming in, and we can go back to growth. COVID-19 solved. We can start looking back and looking forward and see 20 million people coming in, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. Look at the infrastructure that has been set up in Guangdong province, nationally in mainland China, and in connection with Hong Kong and Macau. And you will see that the ability is there now to bring people here, not VIP patrons, but mass and premium. And long-term, there is a lot of potential for that if we understand that we cannot go back to an area where, well, there are no gray areas now. It's black or white, or you behave or you don't.
And David, let me put this to you. I don't know if you're about to give a thought, but I mean, maybe GGR down, but EBITDA up because the margins for the operators are higher on premium mass than they are on VIP.
Well, that's indisputably true, but you know, you make money in gaming from velocity, which is turbocharged by credit. And if you start withdrawing credit, either because the risk associated with it is too high or because of loss of junkets or whatever it may be, your ability to get back to the levels that we saw back in 2013 is non-existent in my view. It wouldn't matter if you got 100 million people into Macau, which you won't. But if you got 100 million people, I suspect it really wouldn't compensate and provide you with that same level of gross gaming revenue. The other thing I comment is that what we're talking about here is a concession for gaming. We're not talking about concessions to invest in other activities. And I think, unfortunately, the gaming concessions have become a proxy for investing in a whole bunch of other activities where either there's been a lack of entrepreneurship or a lack of government funding committed to developing those same activities. And, I think we've got to step back and say, well, the gaming companies really cut out to do that sort of investing. Is it something that they will be interested in doing? Now, okay, I've seen the announcements, the galaxies and so on of this world are wanting to build resorts and do all sorts of things. But going back to 2002-3, we had Las Vegas Sands saying we'll build golf courses all over Hongqing. Now, okay, the idea is there, but frankly, you've got to look a bit more deeply and say, well, what is it? What value proposition are we going to be offering to people to visit? There's no point putting a Disneyland in Hongqing. It's probably more set up now with its infrastructure for commercial purposes than it is for entertainment or resorts or whatever it may be. Certainly what's been built so far anyway. So I'm just a bit dubious, and I guess we'll see what comes out of it in terms of what the expectations of government are when they release the invitation to tender.
Gents, we're running out of time, but I'd just like to put one last question to both of you, and it's a broad, more esoteric kind of question. It seems to me that there's a basic sort of fundamental conflict between Macau and mainland China in our thinking. Macau has been a gaming destination for over 150 years. It's had, long understood to be that. Just as if in North America you say Las Vegas, gaming is immediately conjured up. If you say anywhere in Asia, Macau, immediately people think of casinos and gaming, and it's entrenched in the DNA of the nearly 700,000 people that live in Macau, that Macau is a gaming place, and it's the primary industry. 80% of our taxes come from it. You go to mainland China, as soon as you say gaming or casinos, I will say, well, don't you know that's illegal, right? I mean, you couldn't get two more disparate views. One, it's outright banned. In the other, it's the main industry. This reconciling this conflict, to me, seems to be at the core of some of the troubles that we've had in recent times and further back as well. Are there any comments that you either of you would want to make on that? It seems to me that is part of the fundamental issue, that deep down in its core, China doesn't really approve of what Macau does, yet Macau is under its wing and in its fold. How do we think about that?
We all know that mainland China looks at gaming as something evil, something unwanted. But for Macau, it's something that is natural. It has been part of Macau's existence for 150 years, roughly, as you pointed out. I think the central government has been, to a point, extremely accommodating in the sense that they built the infrastructure to put people here. They have not criticized it up until now, up until recently. They haven't criticized the gaming industry. However, we have to recognize that what they want is for people to focus not in gaming, because it's something that cannot be used, be it internally or externally outside China, as something which is good. they cannot justify why Macau is great without explaining gaming. And that's why they push Macau government to focus on diversification, to focus on other areas, entertainment, leisure. It's the wrapping that in this moment that is necessary for Macau to work on in order to maintain gaming. Gaming will continue, I have no doubt, at least until 2049. What happens after that, that will be for the central government to decide. I believe that until 2049, we will continue to see Macau continue prospering with the gaming industry, but it will not have the relevance that once had with the GGR at the levels of 2014 or even 2019. No, that's not going to happen. We know in Macau, most people do not believe when we speak about diversification, when we speak about hunching, it's a white elephant, I keep hearing. The fact is, when the central government, especially with this president, says, this is where we're headed, it's happening. And he has put in place people that execute his policies. And we can expect to continue to see that even at a local level here in Macau. We already have people that are saying gaming is something that will continue, but it's not something that we need to focus. Look at the policy guidelines of the chief executive and look at how many references he makes to gaming. You will see that diversification, Hengqian, the Greater Bay Area, that is what is crucial, and this is the message that the government is going to be putting forward, because this is what the central government wants. This is a national policy. We will continue to see gaming, but not at the level that we had before. Yes.
Gentlemen, it's been a fascinating discussion. Not an easy one at times because of what's been going on, but I would like to thank you both. David Green, thanks for being on IAG Trade Talk.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Carlos, thank you.
And Carlos, thank you very much as well.
Thank you.
And yeah, to the audience at IAG, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on IAG Trade Talk. Bye for now.